And actions are being taken by governments around the world to mitigate the effects of coronavirus. Let's cross over now to London to get the latest from Juliana. Hello, Juliana. Good morning. I hope you had a great weekend.
Thank you, Chimeze. I did. I stayed inside for most of the weekend, taking those government measures seriously.
I can imagine that. Anyway, despite the coordinated efforts by the central banks, investors are still fretting. Asian markets this morning and, of course, the U.S. stock futures were in the red. Fed's emergency rate cut and huge stimulus package announced couldn't assuage them. How has the London market opened this week?
Well, it's interesting what you said. I think there has been a concerted effort for central banks across the world to try and inject some life into the global economy, but investors are still fretting. It almost seems as if a global recession is a cast iron certainty at the moment. And of course, there are no surprises that the FTSE 100 opened well into the red, well into triple-digit losses this morning, down about 400 points, which is about 8.5% lower. Last week, the top indexes in the UK lost about £250 billion off their share value. That's definitely set to continue this week, with the aviation industry in a serious crisis. Some of the biggest losses at the moment are, of course, the airline stocks. They're taking the lion's share of the plummeting this morning. IAG, that's the British Airways owner, their shares are down by over 20%. EasyJet, that's the budget airline, their shares are down more than 22%. And TUI, which is the largest package holiday operator in the world, their shares are down 27%. So they're all in bear market territory. Also, Barclays, RBS, their shares are down between 4.6 and 9%, and the pound as well is taking a serious battering. At the moment, it's worth about $1.23 right now. So there's lots of share values that are in bear market territory, and traders are seeing, as they've seen for the past couple of weeks, red. Red is the colour of the FTSE at the moment.
Well, over the weekend, President Trump announced the inclusion of UK and Ireland in the travel restriction or ban. Perhaps that's what the airlines are reacting to this morning.
Oh, absolutely. It was an unprecedented move, something that we didn't expect, but some analysts had predicted. That started at about 4 GMT, which is only just a couple of hours ago. And the aviation industry are calling this the bloodiest week that they've ever seen. Some of the bosses are saying this is worse than SARS, worse than the 2008 crash, and can you believe it, worse than the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks. There has been a coordinated letter written to the British government over the weekend, which has been fronted by Virgin Atlantic, and they're saying that they will need a government bailout of about £7.5 billion immediately if most of the airlines are to survive. The British aviation industry brings about £10.5 billion to the economy. It employs over 200,000 people. I've heard that the chief executive officer of British Airways has written to their 45,000 strong staff and said that redundancies can be expected almost immediately. And this does affect quite a number of these airlines. Of course, British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, EasyJet, Ryanair. We did see a couple of weeks ago that Flybe, the Europe's biggest regional airline, they collapsed. Yes, they did have other issues, but predominantly what tipped them off the scale was the fact that they were seeing reductions in bookings. And now that we're seeing borders closed across Europe and the biggest route internationally between Britain and America being stunted, there is a huge issue. Also, last week, the trading body for the airline industry, and this was before Donald Trump closed its borders to Britain and Ireland, they predicted that £113 billion would be wiped off the aviation industry. That number is certainly looking to triple. So now the pressure is on into just how some of these major airlines, major meaning Virgin Atlantic and British Airways, that's been going for over 100 years, can survive if some of these bans are looking likely to last until at least autumn.
Well, FVMH says it will start making hand sanitizer to protect people against the coronavirus outbreak. Are you concerned the price of this sanitizer might be too high for the low income? Could have, designers sanitizer.
Well, this is being made in the Parisian factories that make Givenchy and some other very luxurious perfumes. But look, Chimezie, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and hand sanitizer at the moment is probably the most sought item in the world. France have already got over 130 odd people that have died from COVID-19. Over the weekend, the President Emmanuel Macron did announce that pubs, restaurants, cinemas, schools will be shut for the foreseeable future until they can try and curb the spread. And, LVMH, they're doing their best to support the government by now using their space to make the hand sanitizer. Of course, it's a business move, but many would see this as a move just to try and take the strain off the government, purely because you just can't get any. Are people concerned that the prices are rising? Yes, but I think at the moment, most people just want to get their hands on this sanitizer. So the fact that the bosses at this luxury brand are doing their best to help the government, all good to them.
That's an interesting one anyway. Well, Julian, I'm sure you have more update for us later in the day. Enjoy your day. And let's do a quick crossover now to the Nigerian Stock Exchange. It's a new trading week. Let's see how the local bourse has kick-started the week. Here is Temple. Hello, Temple. So how has the market kick-started the week? Well, I was soon to have lost Temple's audio there, but we hope to connect back to him as soon as possible. But let's still take a look at what the oil price is saying as at this morning. The prices came down this morning as an emergency rate cut by the U.S. Federal Reserve failed to soothe global financial markets panicked by the rapid spread of the coronavirus, while the price war rages on between top producers. Brent crude was down $1.13 to $32.72. And of course, WTI also came down as low as $31.63. All right, let's go back to Temple. Yes, Temple, good morning. You were telling us about how the market has started the week.
Sure, Chimezie, we're down some 0.4% as we speak. We've seen some serious profits taken in the market, and we've seen a lot of the foreign portfolio investors have also continued to sell down as they started last week. That's the sense we're seeing in the market right about now. We see stocks like Zenith Bank, which opened at 12 Naira, had been the toast of a lot of local investors in the market lately. Now it's down to 11 Naira 40-something kobo again. That represents some 4% plus decline, as FBN Holdings is down to 3 Naira 60 kobo. That's like the lowest level I've seen First Bank in a long time. I haven't seen it falling that low before. The loss that we've seen so far on that particular counter today represents a 10% decline in early trades. That's really a shocker to a lot of investors. But then again, it gives opportunities for some investors to also come in and buy some of these low valuations that we have seen in the markets today. And so as we see the exit of a lot of the FPIs, we continue to see, a bit of entry of some local investors on these key counters. The banking names are basically the main sectors that a lot of the investors here are tracking as we speak in the market. Then you have the consumer goods segment. We've seen Nestle falling below 1,000 Naira, and we're seeing some investors, trying to buy this low valuation for Nestle PLC as well, even though some folks are still optimistic that we will see these prices going down lower than the level that we've seen them at this point in time. So that's the expectation of some other investors, and that is not far-fetched. It's simply because we've seen a lot of FPIs continuing to sell down as they see the prices of these stocks, rise a little. They come back into the market again and scoop their cash out of the system. So that's the sense we're seeing. We're likely to see it continue for the rest of the day because there hasn't really been any news or anything positive, that will change the trend or the factor, major driver for these losses in the market. So it's what we've been seeing across the debt market is what we also continue to see in the equity space this Monday, Chimezie.
All right, thank you, Temple. Let's continue to track those market numbers there. And that's a wrap on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwagu.